want to ask you that you have such a nice wife and such a nice little girl. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering how such a nice, normal existence, and you're so strange.
Well, I'm not all that strange, really. And
I'm wearing dark glasses today because I'm seeing the future, and it's looking very bright.
There he goes, one of God's own prototypes, a high-powered mutant of some kind never even considered for mass production, too weird to live and too rare to die. This is a quote from Hunter S. Thompson's 1971 novel, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Coming back across this quote right after the tragic news that my favourite filmmaker David Lynch had passed away really hit me. I sat still for a while. There he goes, the artist who opened my eyes to what the medium of film can be, an emotionally prompting wormhole to the depths of your soul through images. One of my first experiences with David Lynch's work came during my first year at film school, before I dropped out. We had a task to watch and make a presentation on a short film, assessing why the short film works. I came across Lynch's via Posar, a short film he made in 2015, and was immediately absorbed by this surreal concoction of mixed media imagery and how everything in the frame was interacting. It's like a 10-minute floating painting, something that I think Lynch was always aiming to create. And it's a piece very reminiscent of his previous work in lithographs. I worked hard on this presentation about a film I didn't fully understand. I tried to express the power a film this short can hold through sheer image and sound. After presenting what I thought was an interesting discussion on an entirely unique piece of work, the class was naturally divided.
Some inane, bizarre person with a disturbed mind wrote that film, and I did not enjoy it.
Some people really dug it, and some people loathed it. This is a natural reaction to a lot of Lynch's work, but I was told something along the lines of, "You've misunderstood the assignment. I don't think you can call this a film," by my lecturer. I found it infinitely more puzzling to understand this feedback than I did via Posar itself. Why would a film lecturer, whose job it is to teach about the medium of cinema, share such a regressive thought about it? I couldn't wrap my head around it, and I still can't. I presume he knew of David Lynch and his work, had probably at least seen the likes of Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive, and was probably aware of his whole attitude and philosophy when it comes to art.
believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film.
Mm-hmm. Why elaborate on that?
No, I won't. No one sees it.
That an artist's job is not to spoon-feed you a story or to explain their work, but to speak through what they put to film, painting, or any medium. But even when applying a more technical mindset to understanding what film is, a series of moving images that tie together a story, convey a message, or craft an experience, my old lecturer's feedback would still make no sense. I believe this was Lynch's first lesson to me. He taught me to question people and certain institutions that would try to tighten the boundaries of what could be expressed in the medium of cinema. As I mentioned, I eventually dropped out of film school. This was for a number of reasons, but the particular reason was the consistent creative restrictions put on us students, diminishing my passion for an art form I hold so dearly to my heart. Knowing that all the scripts I was writing and ideas I had would be called wrong, I used to say I would walk into a film class wanting to make films and walk out wanting to be a bricklayer. And this was all happening way before I truly fell down the Lynch rabbit hole. At this point in my life, I had still only seen two major David Lynch projects, his industrial and skin-crawling debut film Eraserhead, and Mulholland Drive, a dream noir dissection of the illusion of Hollywood and what is probably the most important film of the 21st century so far. So before Lynch was a major creative and aesthetic inspiration to me, he first became a guiding voice to me, as he was for so many others too. After dropping out of university, I along with some friends started up a small independent film production company. We currently make no money off of it and are self-financing the company and our projects out of pure passion and dedication to the art we love. Lynch taught me to take a leap of faith into the art life and give myself to what I want to create. I'm now working to direct my first major short film project this year, and I don't think I'd be in the position to do so without David Lynch and his work. So for that, I am forever grateful to him. David Lynch's body of work is perhaps the most incredible portfolio ever laid out. Not just his work in film and television, but his paintings, drawings, furniture and music are all imbued with aesthetic sensibilities that can only be found within what he did. The term Lynchian has become somewhat a household phrase, perhaps overused, but for quite good reason. Lynch gave us a phrase to describe the indescribable within our reality. It's a legacy that few artists have reached. My favourite definition of the term Lynchian comes from David Foster Wallace's book, A Supposedly Fun Thing I'll Never Do Again, where he attempts an academic definition that goes, the term refers to a particular kind of irony where the very macabre and the very mundane combine in such a way as to reveal the former's perpetual containment within the latter. Essentially, the grotesque surrealism he's famous for, combined with his admiration for suburban Americana, reveal that the evil within is not an external force, but rather embedded within it, beneath the surface of everyday life. Think of Laura Palmer's life in Twin Peaks, and of his work in Blue Velvet as kind of key examples of this. It's an excellent description of the term Lynchian, but I also think to truly attempt to understand the Lynchian, you must begin with the man himself. David Lynch was a good-hearted man, one who preached kindness and care for people over anything else. A man who had a disdain for other directors who used methods of fear to create their vision. Watching his films, it may be easy to sometimes view him as perhaps a bit of a nihilist, with how nightmarish his films are, but Lynch proves that you can have an understanding of the darkness within our shared reality and still face it with a shield of optimism. I think that David Lynch was a man that stood in the face of America's darkness and its violence and countered it with a love for people because he truly believed that America could be a better, more peaceful and accepting place. The importance of Lynch's work cannot be overstated. You can see remnants and reflections of his work in so much of film and television today. Eraserhead, which was released in 1977, quickly became one of Stanley Kubrick's favourite movies, and has since become an inspiring staple of low-budget avant-garde filmmaking and is the cult midnight movie. The Elephant Man, starring Anthony Hopkins and John Hurt, catapulted him into the limelight and was his most acknowledged film by the Oscars. Despite not winning any of his 8 nominations, Blue Velvet was a commercial and critical smash, coming off of what Lynch described as a failure, his studio-interfered adaptation of Dune. Blue Velvet was ahead of its time, tearing down America's white picket fence and changing the shape of American culture. It changed everything. He also won a Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival, arguably the most prestigious film award you can achieve, for his road trip movie through the Sunbelt states with Laura Dern and Nicolas Cage. Films like Lost Highway and Inland Empire feel like intertextual dreamscapes and complete deconstructions of the form, which leaves a haunting mark on anyone who's watched them. Mulholland Drive was voted as the most important film of the 21st century so far by the BBC, which I have an entire video on if you'd like to hear more about it. He's even proved he can make deeply moving art even within the confines of studio-preferred narrative cohesiveness, with his film The Straight Story, which he proclaims is his most experimental film. Him claiming that is a massive clue as to how he views art and what he was creating. His work is nothing short of boundary pushing and avant-garde, but to him that all came naturally. He didn't worship himself as some great thinker. This approach to his art was simply just natural and what worked for him. So to have to shift his practice to something a lot more consciously simplistic was a great experiment to him. And of course, Twin Peaks changed the world. It is, without a doubt in my mind, the greatest TV show to ever air. Twin Peaks is one of the first examples of a TV show to tell a story over a whole season or multiple. It blew open the detective investigation genre of TV and captured people's attention all over the world with its wacky characters, unique atmosphere, and mood and sensitive subject matter. Putting it simply, without Twin Peaks, The Sopranos wouldn't have been what it is, and likely wouldn't have ushered in the golden age of television. What David Lynch and Mark Frost were doing with that original run of Twin Peaks was again way ahead of its time, and so was its prequel film, Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, which is one of Lynch's most disturbing looks at suburban America. Following Laura Palmer in the days leading up to her death, which would kickstart the show of Twin Peaks. It was panned by critics at the time, but has undergone serious re-evaluation in recent years and has been realised for the masterpiece it is. I hope Lynch realised just how many people came round to appreciating Fire Walk With Me as one of, if not the prime example, of the power Lynch held within the medium of his art. In short, the original run of Twin Peaks was the key to unlocking the true power of TV as a medium of art, and then 25 years after the original run, Lynch and Mark Frost would unlock a new door into true avant-garde television with Twin Peaks: The Return. Set and released 25 years after the end of Season 2, Twin Peaks: The Return shocked the world by reinvigorating what could be done in television. At some point I aim to create a full video talking about The Return, but for now I will say that, in light of his passing, knowing this was his final major work imbues it with even more power than it already held. I think that episode 8 of this series stands as the episode of television to ever air. Every idea, theme, symbolism and iconography that Lynch has ever experimented with in his entire career, from his paintings to his music, short films, and his entire filmography, and of course the earlier works of Twin Peaks, can all be found to culminate in this 18-part experience. I don't think it's extreme of me to say that getting into Lynch's work is genuinely life-changing. He and his work changed how I view the world and art, taught me that all you need is an idea, and once you have it, there's nothing more important than holding on to it and willing that idea into existence by providing that idea with an art form to surface on. It's taken me a little while to make this video. I found out about the passing of David Lynch when I was on holiday. It certainly put a bit of a dampener on things, but I had a great time exploring the beautiful city of Amsterdam nonetheless. Since then, I've been back to full-time work, co-running a startup film production company, and working to fundraise my first short film. It's been an extremely busy, nearly couple of months. The moment I got back into my apartment after my holiday at 3 in the morning, I was desperate to watch something Lynch. I put back on the Twin Peaks pilot that night. The way that we get a glimpse into how Lynch views grief in the process of how the town mourned the loss of Laura Palmer, bringing the community together, is something so beautiful. Unlike how in the Twin Peaks pilot it brings together the community, there's a cornucopia on the internet of growing far-right evil, known as what I still like to call Twitter, but you know the app. On this app there is a little corner of it dedicated to us film fans known as Film Twitter, which 90% of the time is also insufferable, but in the weeks since the passing of David Lynch, through the shared grief of every film fan, this little corner of the internet has seen our community of film fans brought together to celebrate the pioneering art life of David Lynch. And although it's sad, it's been a beautiful thing to see how the man brought so many people together through his work and how he inspired so many creatives. On the heights of David Lynch, nobody has climbed higher.